JWoww has finally decided to speak out and tell the truth about Roger, and it seems like things between them have been much worse than we thought. She posted an open letter to him on her website and exposed all the ways he had been causing her harm, and what she had to say was genuinely disturbing. A lot of the stuff that Jenni talked about in her open letter is actually very serious. She talked about how Roger goes on social media and pretends he's one way, but the reality is completely different, and it's all just a facade. But she also accused him of DV, and she went into all the ways he was awful to her during their marriage as well as after she filed for divorce. And I'm going to get into all of that right now. So you should be careful while watching this video, especially if those topics are something you're sensitive to. Unfortunately, Jenni's revelations about Roger don't exactly come as a surprise. We've all seen them together on the show, and a lot of people agree that there were so many signs that there could be something very wrong going on. And one of the biggest red flags about their relationship actually happened pretty early on, years before they even got married. If you've been around since then, you'll definitely remember the huge fight that broke out at Bamboo Bar all the way back in 2012. There was a lot of controversy around it back then, so what happened between Roger and Jenni might have even gotten lost in the noise a little more than it should have. Jenni came out of that fight with a sprained ankle, and it was really all because of Roger. At first, Roger and the other boys got into a fight with some other people at the bar, but when things started getting out of hand, Jenni actually tried to step in and hold Roger back, but he pushed her away pretty forcefully, and she actually stumbled and broke her ankle as a result. And the thing is, Jenni actually thought that Roger might not have realized it was her when he pushed her away, but he didn't even try to pretend that that was the case. He actually later said that he was fully aware it was Jenni, and he still pushed her, and that was really just one of many red flags. It was even more obvious on Snooki and JWoww that their relationship definitely had a lot of issues. At one point, JWoww even made it pretty obvious that Roger made her do things in bed that she wasn't really okay with, which is just awful. But even though it took a few years, I'm glad that Jenni's been able to finally get out of that situation and is speaking about it all now. She actually said in her open letter that she initially didn't even want to speak out about everything. She was worried that it would have a negative impact on their kids and that it could even be humiliating for them. For her, the kids have always been the first priority, so she was just hoping that they could just resolve the divorce, get over their differences, and co-parent their kids in peace. But over time, it became obvious that that just wasn't going to happen, so she had no choice but to speak out, and speak out she did. She exposed all the things Roger did to harm her, and she mentioned some really vile tactics in her letter that harmers often use against their victims. We even knew about the one time that Roger had pushed Jenni to the ground, but that apparently wasn't the only time at all. Jenni actually attached a video from the Nest camera in their house that showed another incident, and you could even see Roger slap Jenni in the face before he pushed her to the ground again. Jenni also said that Roger spat at her and that he stopped her from closing a door to put a barrier in between them when she was scared of him. That's another huge red flag right there. And he apparently even went as far as to involve other people to try to get at Jenni. She said that there were times he contacted her boss to try and smear her name at work, and he apparently even contacted authorities and reported that Jenni had harmed their kids, which was something he just made up. And on top of all that, he apparently even teamed up with Jenni's terrible exes from the past against her. Jenni has had some pretty bad relationships even before Roger, and at one point back in her college years, her then boyfriend allegedly harmed her so badly that she had to be hospitalized, and Roger supposedly actually contacted the guy to ask him for help getting back at Jenni. And this is someone who in the past was completely ignoring restraining orders against him, and he wasn't even the only one Roger allegedly contacted. Another one of Jenni's exes apparently tried to steal money from her and got arrested for it, and he supposedly did that because Roger asked him to. And the thing is, Roger knew what Jenni's history with these guys was. He knew they were both terrible people to her at different points, and he still chose to try and bring them back into her life. But to Jenni, the worst part would definitely be all the things he does when he's around their kids. On his social media, he makes it look like he's a really good dad, but Jenni exposed that that's actually all just an act. In reality, the things he allegedly does to them are sometimes actually dangerous, like the time he apparently gave pizza to their son Grayson. But the thing is, Grayson is lactose intolerant and allergic to gluten, so regular pizza is something he really shouldn't eat because the pastry is full of gluten. And this isn't something Jenni just made up. Grayson's doctors diagnosed the allergies, and Roger chose to just ignore that. And when Jenni brought it up with him later, he refused to have an actual conversation about Grayson's diet and health. Instead, he just spoke down to Jenni and made it seem like she was in the wrong for making sure Grayson was properly taken care of. He also apparently made it so that Grayson wouldn't get to go to therapy while spending time with Roger. We know that Grayson is autistic, and he has a therapist helping him navigate that. Apparently, the therapist comes straight to their house for Grayson sessions, but when Roger was watching him, he just refused to let the therapist in at all. She apparently stood there knocking on the door and ringing the bell while it was freezing cold too. But Roger just wouldn't let her in, so eventually she left. So it just really seems like he doesn't actually care about the kids' well-being. He just does whatever he wants with them, and then he pretends to be the best dad ever on social media. But the truth is he's anything but that, at least according to Jenni. When it comes to custody discussions, Roger also whines about how Jenni never lets him see the kids. But he apparently refused to have their eldest daughter, Melanie, spend the night at his place at one point because he didn't want to pay for a babysitter. Jenni apparently offered that he could have Melanie overnight so that he could spend some time with her, but he had to go to work in the morning, so he would have to hire a babysitter for that time. And according to Jenni, he just refused to do that and just didn't take Melanie at all, which is just crazy. I mean, it would have been maybe $40 maximum, and it's definitely not like he doesn't have the money for that. And money is actually another thing he's been bothering Jenni about. He was allegedly even questioning if their prenup was valid during the divorce, and that was despite the fact he signed it on camera. He was doing that because if it wasn't valid, he would be able to get a lot more money from the divorce, especially when it comes to the house they lived in as a family, because that was actually Jenni's house before. And thanks to the prenup, he didn't actually have any claim to it. Everything that Jenni brought up in the open letter was really horrible, but at least it looks like she's finally done putting up with all of it. And at the very end of the letter, Jenni expressed her support for other DV victims who might still be in a situation like hers. She also pointed anyone who might need it to some free materials that her lawyer put together that should be helpful in that situation. But most of all, Jenni said that if you're in that kind of situation, just know that you're not alone and that things can get better. Even with this letter, she's finally working toward getting Roger out of her life for good, and that's going to be a much better future for her and her kid. But what do you guys think? When was the moment you knew Roger was a terrible partner for Jenni? Let me know in the comments below.